Apparently, there were some major plans for WWE, TNA, and AJ Styles for Slammiversary, but WWE has decided to prevent it from happening. We're going to talk about that in a lot of detail today. Also, an NXT star is getting a ton of high praise, and we are talking about SummerSlam. And if you guys want more videos like this, don't forget to click that subscribe button. This way you never miss a video on the channel. I want to kick things off with SummerSlam. Of course, it is a 2-day event, 2 nights, August 2nd, August 3rd. And of course, everybody's talking about SummerSlam right now. The build is very, very good, which is not necessarily shocking to me at all in the slightest. WWE is swinging for the fences. It is very clear. It is very obvious when you watch the WWE right now. They are trying to blow WrestleMania out of the water, which is the right mentality to have, obviously, with SummerSlam being 2 nights. It's the first time ever that it's 2 nights. Yeah, you don't really want to mess this up, because if you do a really good job with 2 nights here, then you're probably going to do a really good job in the future. Now, there was a report that's come out, multiple reports have come out regarding the headliners for both nights. And the belief is that Gunther and CM Punk will, in fact, headline night 1 and become the main event. And then, of course, for night 2, we have John Cena versus Cody Rhodes in a street fight for the WWE Championship. Now, of course, this is leading to a ton of interesting conversation on social media, because a lot of people feel like the women have gotten burned by not having a WrestleMania main event this year. And then now with SummerSlam, you obviously have something really strong with Naomi, Rhea, and Io Sky, and we're not seeing them main event either. And some people find this to be very critical of WWE. Some people find this to be very, just honestly, I think a lot of people are just simply annoyed, if I'm being realistic. And the thing about this whole situation is that WWE tends to say that the best story will be the main event. However, when you look at SummerSlam, I think what they're really trying to do, and it's not so much about the best story, because we still have time, obviously, for CM Punk and Gunther to be built up. But I do think for WWE, it's about making this the biggest name value. And Gunther has cemented himself as a legitimate main event player in the WWE. And then, of course, you have CM Punk, who is obviously one of the most notable names in professional wrestling history. And then, of course, Cody Rhodes and John Cena. I think that already speaks for itself. So it's not even so much about the best story, but if they're trying to sell out 2 nights of SummerSlam, if they're trying to make this a big ordeal, if they're trying to make this even bigger than WrestleMania, you are going to go with the bigger names. I don't really have an issue with this. I think both feuds are very strong and very capable of doing good stuff. Now it just depends how they decide to book the show. This leads us to Trick Williams. Ladies and gentlemen, Trick Williams was seen on WWE Raw wearing the World Championship belt of TNA. And Trick Williams, of course, is getting a lot of love from fans these days. A lot of people are recognizing that, he's been able to break away from Carmelo Hayes. He's been able to really hold it down in NXT. He's been really killing it as the TNA World Championship holder. And now we know for a fact that WWE is reportedly very impressed with him. Bodyslam.net, a new report that came from them, indicates that WWE officials are very impressed with the work of the current TNA World Champion. Now, keep in mind, with him wearing the TNA World Championship on WWE Raw, that's a really big deal for TNA. And it's a really big deal for Trick Williams. This guy has a lot of charisma. And he's really good at connecting with the crowd. And that's one of those things where I just think ultimately, if you're able to do that and you're able to be successful in connecting with the crowd, you are going to be huge. And right now it's kind of interesting because Trick Williams is actually doing a really good job as a heel, but I do find there to be a better market and a better audience for him as a babyface. And of course, with WWE putting talent in NXT, their goal is to get people to learn how to be a heel, learn how to be a babyface, especially if you don't have a massive history being a professional wrestler. And Trick Williams had a little bit, but for the most part, a lot of his training, a lot of the development that you see has come from NXT and the Performance Center. So for Trick Williams to be able to be put in this position where he is going to go and be a main eventer one day in WWE, the only way that's going to happen is by having him do this stuff with TNA. So WWE has already benefited by doing so. In addition to that, TNA has benefited. So now WWE is very impressed with Trick Williams, and I think it's very clear. Once Trick Williams is done wearing the TNA World Championship around his waist, I think it's really clear that WWE will put him on the main roster. Now, it is going to be interesting to see how they put him on the main roster, and the reason why I say that is largely due to the fact that Carmelo Hayes is on the main roster. And WWE has a lot of love for Carmelo Hayes, despite the fact that he's not constantly on TV. But WWE also doesn't want him losing a shit ton either. There's just a lot of stuff happening on WWE programming. So I'm wondering if maybe WWE can find a way to bring Carmelo and Trick together until both guys are ready. And when I mean by ready, I'm not talking about because of their personal development, but I'm talking about, WWE and their ability to have different storylines and stuff like that. We saw Carmelo, we saw Carmelo with The Miz. We see what's going on with Aleister Black and Damian Priest. There's just a lot of stories circulating. Maybe Trick gets called up. Obviously, they love him, and they're going to want him to be successful in the main roster, but you can't rush him to the top anyways. It's going to be really interesting to see how that all plays out in its entirety. Speaking of TNA, well, there was some original plans for AJ Styles. WWE had blocked them from happening. So basically, Carlos Silva told John Elba of Sports Illustrated, The Takedown, that the creative plans for AJ Styles changed a few times leading up to the event, but the original plan was always to celebrate AJ's X Division history. John Elba had reported that multiple TNA sources relayed that the former WWE champion was expected to be in a segment involving Frankie Kazarian, but that plans shifted in the hours before the event. Now, of course, Kazarian was later on used on the show where he was on commentary. But the big thing here about this report, John Elba continued to say, TNA sources believe WWE may have had some say in now wanting to promise a future match in the promotion for AJ Styles that they weren't going to deliver on, as no main roster talent has worked a TNA match so far during the partnership, which is true. Joe Hendry did work WrestleMania, but a main roster star has not jumped over to TNA and been on TV for a match. AJ Styles, it's a tricky situation because I kind of understand where WWE's coming from, right? With AJ Styles not being in a match, if AJ Styles was in a match at Slammiversary and got hurt, now SummerSlam between him and Dom Mysterio is ruined. So you got to be careful with the risk. I understand that portion. I do find it to be somewhat petty, though, that WWE couldn't find a way to get AJ Styles, at least to tease some sort of match, because maybe right now you don't want to do anything. Maybe you don't want to risk it because of SummerSlam, but why not tease something for Bound for Glory? And that's kind of the thing that I want to see what WWE can do. I think it's not fair if AJ Styles doesn't have at least one more match in TNA. So I'm hoping that WWE makes that happen. But WWE preventing it from happening is kind of dumb, in my opinion. I think it's foolish. I understand the risk, but we're talking about an ultimate professional with AJ Styles. I'm not too concerned about that risk as much. Anyways, you guys let me know what you think down below. Do you think AJ Styles will eventually wrestle in TNA? I'm curious to hear what you got to say.